And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live. My name is Tim Baggers, joined this afternoon on a hot and muggy Tallahassee day with a special guest, Charlie Ward, who many of you will already know. For me, it's a bit of an education, Charlie, getting to know you a little bit, having not come from Florida and even the United States. But if you wouldn't mind, just share a little bit of who you are and how you got to what you're doing today.
Well, I'm an FSU alum. Went to Florida State from '89 to graduated in '93, and I went on to play professional basketball with New York Knicks and I played 11 years in the NBA. Coached with the Houston Rockets for 2 years. Then I coached 9 years of football. High school football, and then I'm currently coaching high school basketball here at Florida State University Schools, boys basketball. So that's in a nutshell my career.
And I'm sure you've done 1,000 of these interviews and talked to so many people about your career. And the interesting thing for me is that ability to switch between sports. And if any of us watched The Last Dance, and I know you did, and many of us, we saw Jordan trying to switch sports, and we've seen Tim Tebow try to switch sports. You're one of the few who've actually been able to do it very successfully. Is that due to the way you were brought up? Did you play a lot of different sports?
I did. I mean, I was an athlete. I actually have a book out called The Athlete. And, that's really one of the things that I always wanted to do. And it's one of the things I always did. Growing up, I went outside to play. We played multiple sports in the streets, in my backyard and in the neighborhood. And so it helped me when it came to, playing multiple sports because I had a gift and God allowed me to be able to, pick up that part of, life easier than others. And, when it was time for me to play middle school sports, high school sports, I played multiple sports, not just two, but most times 3 sports. And then, once I got to college, I want to continue that same course or path. And Coach Bowden and Coach Kennedy allowed me to do that. And I'm grateful for both of those gentlemen allowing me to keep my dream alive of playing multiple sports. And that's just something I enjoy doing. It wasn't a burden, probably physically, later on. Took a toll on my body, but at the time, it was fun. I enjoyed it. The transition from one sport to the other, of course, was a little difficult when it came to being in shape, but just the enjoyment of being able to compete at a high level in both sports was something that I enjoyed immensely.
As a coach now, you've coached football for many years and now basketball. Have you seen that change in the athletes that you're working with? I'm assuming you still encourage them to play multiple sports, but are you seeing more and more kids playing one sport and specializing?
You do now. And times have changed, and there are some guys who are excelling at a high level when it comes to playing multiple sports. I know we currently have one that's exceeding, which is Trey Donaldson, who plays basketball and football, and a lot of kids. But if I have 12 players on my varsity team, 11 of them are playing only basketball, which that's not my preference. But they just feel like if they're not in the gym, they're not getting better, which is a good thing. But it's still something that they may be missing out on an opportunity somewhere else. And so that's my whole reason for wanting kids to play multiple sports is just to give yourself an option. For me, if I were to pigeonhole myself into just playing football, then the NFL would have been my only option. But I gave myself a chance to play multiple sports and basketball. I mean, football and basketball in college, and I ended up getting an opportunity to play in the NBA. Which, if I would have given up that chance, then I would have never had the option to be able to choose. And so that's my whole reason for asking kids to play multiple sports, is just to give them an option, because one sport may be better at getting a scholarship than the other. But if you're only focusing on one sport, then you're really putting all your eggs in that one basket, which is fine. I mean, if that's what you want to do. But I'm just a big believer that sometimes you may be able to, if you're not playing at a high level, or your skills not at a high level, then you may be able to combine some money to be able to get a full scholarship along with your academic. And so it's just a matter of just trying to figure out the course that you want to take, and go, do it, because it's your choice and you have to live the results.
You've coached at the professional level and you've coached at the high school level. What are some of the challenges and experiences that you've had that differentiate those two levels? Because a lot of students will come in and talk to me, Dr. Baggers, I want to be a coach. Okay. Well, what do you want to coach? I want to coach football. Okay. At what level? I want to be a pro football coach. All right. Do they understand that there are differences in how they almost work towards that versus a high school program? You've done both. Can you share a little bit about how those are different?
Well, it really all comes down to the same thing. It's all about who you know.
Really?
And that's one of the things I'm always talking to college students about, especially athletes, since I was an athlete, is while you're in school and you have a platform as an athlete, student athlete, use that to make connections, because you're not going to always be able to play a sport. And one of my mentors and guys who helped me through the NBA was Coach Jeff Van Gundy. And he wasn't a professional athlete. He played in college at a Division III school, and he started out, trying to figure it out, or making connections with, certain people. And he was able to get on and work and do the little things to get to a point where he got added to the staff, and then he moved on up. And so everyone has a different path sometimes, but the bottom line is you have to start making connections with people to be able to get in the door. And once you get in the door, you got to stay there by making yourself valuable, doing the little things. If they ask you to go and cut film, you go cut film. Even if you don't know how to do it, you learn. And then that's where, some people start, and like a lot of people, some people have different ways of getting there. For me, I was in the NBA, got injured, and Coach Van Gundy gave me an opportunity to do an internship my second year in Houston. And then I enjoyed it so much, my internship, that, a door opened on the staff, and he allowed me to become a staff member the following year. And so that kind of catapulted me into coaching, in the pro, and having that experience in pro level. And I didn't have I enjoyed it, coaching the younger players coming in, but I just didn't enjoy the business aspect or the business mindset, or lack thereof, from some of the players when it came to, competing at a high level. We're not just there to earn a paycheck, which the paycheck is good, but we're there to help win championships. And if I didn't, seeing some of the players not focusing in on that aspect, then I was just wasting my time. And so That's the reason why I made the transition. One of the reasons why I made the transition to the high school level is because I wanted to have more flexibility with my schedule, because I've been on the NBA schedule for 13 years. And so I wanted that change, and I ended up in high school, and it's been great. You know, the experiences I've had for quite some time in my professional career and even my college career. Now I'm sharing those experiences with the high school students, but it all came back to the connections that I was able to make while I was playing to help me with my transition.
As a talented athlete, sometimes there can be a challenge expecting others to live up to the standards that you have or had. And you talked about Van Gundy coming from a smaller school and maybe not having the skill set that you did, and was able to work through and become a successful coach. Yet at the same time, somebody such as yourself, it can be perhaps easy to fall into the trap of, you would just do it like this. Oh, why can't you do it like me? How do you work with athletes who just don't have the skills that you had, and in recognizing that maybe their ceiling isn't as high as your own?
Well, it's kind of like preparing food.
Okay.
You know, you come in with some raw material, whatever that raw material is, and the cook comes in and doctors it up. And so once they doctored it up, whatever they're putting in it and their skills and those types of things, then you put it in the oven, and then the oven, after you take it out of the oven, that now is ready to be, eaten. And so, there is a process. I was raw at one time. And so all the things, this is the thing that I had to learn was, yes, I did some things that were natural. But when I started to look back on my career, I had been taught a lot. And so everyone is raw at some point in time. And over the course of my years, I've been taught how to play the quarterback position. I've been taught, how to manage my time. I've been taught a lot of the fundamentals that I learned, playing quarterback, also, skill development wise from Coach Van Gundy, teaching me how to work, how to use drills to work on my left hand, work on my shot. Those are the things that, we all go through, even though we're talented and we have great success on the court. But there's always challenges, of course, but we can all learn, regardless of, Michael Jordan had to learn. Top tier athletes, they have to learn, and someone's coaching them through that. And in order for us to be able to grow as athletes, to be successful, we have to be coachable. And so, when no matter what level or what type of person or what type of level you're coaching at, the experiences that we learn from other people. Some people say, man, well, you weren't an athlete. How can you coach? Or you weren't a top tier athlete. It's not about being a top tier athlete to be able to share wisdom and knowledge that you may have learned from another top tier coach. And so, yes, you have to be respectable in your profession. And you have to be able to evaluate well, especially as a coach, to be able to evaluate talent and hear the guys excel. A lot of times it's a mix. It's a mix of, basketball skills, and then the mental aspect, being able to push people past comfortable, and getting them to a point where they're playing above and beyond their expectation. And so that's what coaching really boils down to, getting someone to play at a high level, pushing them from a physical standpoint and pushing them from a mental standpoint, to be able to get them to that next. And so if you have a guy that has the talent of a 5, and you have a guy that has a talent of an 8, more than likely at some point in time, if they both have the same mentality as a coachable spirit, a great work ethic, the 5 will never catch with the 8.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you have the Jordan, the LeBrons, the Kobe's, those type of guys that go to the next level. And then for me, as from a basketball standpoint, I was like a 5. I would never be those guys, and that's okay. But we both have the same work ethic. I may get to a 7, and they're going to get to a 10 or 11. But when it's all said and done, we both have improved, and we're working to try to find our niche in what we're trying to get accomplished.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Charlie Warden. If you have a question, just put it in your chat box and we'll get it to him. We do have one question for you, and I think you may know who this is, NBA coach Griffin. He asks, how did your strong faith help shape your athletic experience?
Well, it definitely helped having a strong faith, because, of course, there's always going to be challenges in life, and leaning on the Lord, having a relationship with him definitely helps shape your perspective. Humility is a big thing that I always talk about, and that's something that I always say wins. If you have humility, you're going to always win, because you're always going to go back to the main thing being the main thing, which is having with the Lord leading your decisions, and Him being proud of what you've done. Because, as I've said, He's always going to win. And it also it gave me an opportunity to be respected by my teammates. People's like, well, how did that happen? Well, because I wanted to treat people the way God has treated me. Now, did it always happen? No, it didn't always happen that way. But people always will respect the things that I said, because they knew it was coming from a good place. And I didn't talk that often, but when I did share things, I sat back and I watched and, listened and all the different things, and then I would share, an experience. But as I mentioned, you want to make sure that, for me, when I was going through the NBA and it's shaping my faith, being shaping by the things that I was going through, it allowed me to be able to share my weaknesses with others, because now I knew that it was going to glorify my Heavenly Father. A lot of people are afraid for their weaknesses to come out because they think it's going to shame them and all those other things. Well, I wanted to learn from that. And I did learn from my weaknesses and things that I was struggling with, so that I can help someone else not having to go through that. And that's what my faith did for me as a basketball player and, in the NBA, because I was able to sharpen my brother Allen Houston. I had Mark Jackson. I had quite a few guys that came through the Knicks that we were able to sharpen one another because of our faith, and that we all struggle with something.
Mm-hmm.
But be able to have that accountability, knowing that it's coming from a good place, and we won't get judged because we may have a shortcoming, but they will be able to help us, pray us through, and be able to help us to develop and grow. And that's basically, what being a Christian, I know for me, and having faith has definitely helped, because I have brothers who are going to sharpen me. It's going to hold me accountable to my relationship with the Lord, and then we can all, grow.
When you look at your daily responsibilities, you're a head basketball coach in a high school. You have a family. You have a lot of speaking engagements, and people asking for your time and advice, and it can be very difficult, I imagine, to juggle all that. And so one of the things that I hear a lot from coaches is just the time issue of having enough time to be an effective coach. But spend time with the family and be at home. Do you have any advice for those who are kind of looking to get into coaching or maybe, improve as coaches in how you've been able to juggle all those responsibilities?
Well, one of the things that I've, done is I count the cost, because people ask me all the time is, why are you in high school? Why are you coaching in high school? You could easily be in the pros or in college.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, 13 years in the NBA, 11 years playing and 2 years coaching. I've had my run for the NBA, and I wanted to spend more time with my family. So high school coaching is what I want to do, and I counted the cost because I know if I would have jumped into college coaching, that's year round, and your time is very similar to the NBA. And so, if that was the case, then I would just stay in the NBA lifestyle. But so it's been very good because for high school, we have seasons, and the pockets aren't year round. And so, for instance, now that we're getting ready this summer, we're getting ready to get into the summer season. So we normally go 4 days a week for a couple hours during those days. Then we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Being the head coach, you get to set the schedule. And you're working to try to make sure that you have a good summer plan and a good, off-season plan and in-season plan and all those different plans. The other key for me is to be able to have great assistants. And I've been blessed since I've been coaching high school to have great assistants that I can delegate things to, and I don't always have to have my hands in everything. And I just trust that they're going to do their jobs to be able to help. It's just like a team. Everyone's trusted to do their job, and if you can't get the job done, then we can work through that, or we can find someone else. And so that helps as well. And now that I'm coaching basketball, it's a smaller group, and you can bring that a group most times around the house. And that's the way I was raised. My dad was a coach, and kind of implemented me into a lot of the things that he was doing as a coach. I used to go to practice. I used to ride the bus on the games. I used to get water, used to help wash clothes. You name it, I was there. And so I kind of grew up that way. And so my dad was either at the schoolhouse or when he came home, his time was spent getting prepared and ready for the next day. And so any time that I got with my dad or even my mom, who was a librarian, both educators, but especially my dad, anytime that I got, we sat and watched games. It wasn't film, it was just games on television. We would eat dinner together watching games on television. And now, because we have a routine here at the house where we eat dinner at 6 o'clock every day. During the school years, it's a bit different, but most times it's around the same time. And we have a schedule. We have a family schedule that we put all of our things and activities on, and then we kind of go accordingly. And we try to coordinate our schedules together. And that's the beauty of me being in high school coaching. College, I'm sure it would be the same way. You put your schedule, your family schedule together, and you would make the activities that you can make with the kids, and you'll have to miss some because of your time. And I know I've talked to a lot of college coaches, and this time they've had at home, they've really enjoyed just getting a chance to spend time and quality time with their family. And they will never get this time back because once things open up again as far as recruiting and the season and working out players. It's always on the go. But I've found that the coaches that have the most success long term strike the balance between work, spending quality time when they get it with the family, and allowing the family to be around their work, and not making work such business like to where the family don't feel like they can come at least once or twice a week to either hang out hang out to eat dinner. I know that's one of the things that Coach Bob instilled into our culture at Florida State when I was there. Was we had family night every Wednesday night. The coaches and their families came and ate with us. And so that was very valuable because it showed us that we were a family and we got a chance to know their kids and they got a chance to know us outside of the football field. And so it was just, that's what I was brought up in. And that's the type of environment that I want to continue. But some people may go to a different environment, and then they may end up being more business-like, where you can't bring your family around. It's like taboo to bring them around. And, not that they don't want them, they just think separating family from business is what's best. And that's, their prerogative. And there have been ways, teams and coaches that have been successful doing that. But there are a lot of coaches have been burnt out from that way as well. So the team, the coaching staffs that have stayed the longest together, those coaches, I do believe, have a family environment. I mean, if you probably do the history of long tenured coaches, you would probably see great stability on that staff.
I think you've just created a research study for us to work on in looking at that. I think you're absolutely right. I was literally before this interview reading an article about stress and burnout in coaching, and some of the comments from the interviewees were to that idea of, I love being able to bring my family into my practices to make it a connection with them so that when I'm at work, I'm still with my family. You talked a little bit about your assistant coaches, and I was wondering, do you look for coaches who fit within your philosophy, or do you try to look for coaches who might have different ideas and bring a different approach, but at the same time may not have that harmony with you?
The coaches that I look for, they have to have this one thing in common. I work with all type of people. They don't have to be Christians, but we do have values and those types of things that we need because we are mentoring our kids. But the one thing that we all have to have in common is a Philippians 2 attitude, which is, it's not about me. And if I need to pick up trash to clean up the locker room, then that's what I do. If I need to make an adjustment, and that's not what Coach asked me to do at the beginning of the season, that's what I do. So we just have to be flexible in our thinking, in our approach, because when it's all said and done, we just need to get the job done. And so even though I ask you to be the JV head coach, well, I may need you to be the assistant varsity coach, because the assistant varsity coach may have gotten another job. And so I need for you to move up, and then we need you to do both. And so that's the kind of flexibility that I look in when it comes to the coaches that I want to have on my staff, and not saying, well, I just I'm just a defensive line coach. Well, I need you to be what about if I bring in a defensive line, coach, but I ask you to coach defensive ends? So it's just that versatility and flexibility from the mindset that I will do whatever you ask me to do to help better our, because at some point in time we have to ask our players to do that. If we can't model that behavior, then it's going to be tough for us to ask our players to do it.
I was before this interview, I was thinking of the questions I wanted to ask you, because you have a very unique background in having come across two different sports and have been very successful in both. And I was thinking, there's no question that probably hasn't been asked of Charlie. And then I thought, I wonder if I should ask him, is there a question that people should have asked you that they've never asked you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I mean, I was just like, I don't know. I mean, you probably get the same questions over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, I want to ask questions that he doesn't get all the time. I will ask this, though.
No, I've had quite a few. I've had all types of questions. So,
okay.
I mean,
so you probably have had them. Looking at coaching as a whole and your experience as both an athlete and a coach, and a coach both professionally and collegiately, and recognizing that, the primary purpose of these interviews is to really help those who want to go into the coaching and sports professions and want to improve in those professions. What kind of advice would you give to those people?
Well, first of all, come in with a humble approach.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'll do whatever you're asking me to do. That approach definitely will help open some doors. Be prepared. If you have an interview, just do a little homework. Be prepared for the opportunity. Whatever you're going in for, just be prepared for it. And in an interview, you relax and be who you are. And so I'm just not a big, I'm not a rah-rah guy. I'm not a guy who curses. Of course, we want to be authentic, but we also want to be to a point where we're professional.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you're talking on an interview or try to get a job, sometimes it's just time to be real. And what I mean by that is you just tell all your business, and it's just it's very similar to like a first date. You just don't go and tell the first date everything that you have gone through. You kind of ease into that, building trust and those types of things. And that's not bad. Eventually, you want them to see the good side of you, and then you can sprinkle in a few things that you may have, a few weaknesses. But I don't think people want to hear, your whole story, but of course it's going to come out if they ask you a question to come out. And that's when they ask you a question, be real. And then, like I always say, you can be real. If a question comes and it's asking you to be honest and those types of things, but humility is always going to win. And so me, people can ask me a negative question and I'll work so hard by the time I finish answering the question that it's something that's positive, because it's something that you can learn from everything. And so whatever it is, if it's a negative, you can always say at the end, man, this is what I learned through that experience. And yes, it is a challenge. Yes, it is a weakness. However, this is what I'm doing to improve that weakness. And so people, when people hear that, I do believe that they see a person that's willing to accept responsibility for their actions. They're also willing to learn from their actions. And so I know some people may defend what they're doing. That's not going to help you get a job, especially for people to trust you. And I know that's one of the things that you see in players a lot, or just people, they get defensive. And I'm like that sometimes, things that people may say, even my wife may say sometimes, and I get defensive. Well, that's just human life.
Yeah.
That's going to, happen. But I have to check myself because that's not maybe the right response. So I just think it's very important that you show you have humility. You answer the question honestly, but you also talk about what you learn from it.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you and wants to ask a question, wasn't able to do so today, or is watching it at another time, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm on Facebook. Both handles are Charlie Ward Official. Facebook and Instagram, I know it's Charlie Ward Official.
Real Charlie Ward is your Twitter handle.
Twitter's at Real Charlie Ward. Facebook is Charlie Ward Official, and Instagram is Charlie Ward Official.
Okay. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit of your wisdom and expertise, and hopefully this is beneficial to our students and anyone else who's watching.
Well, I definitely appreciate you having me. And of course, just like us all, we started somewhere, and we had to get to where we are. And it was through experiences, positive and negative experiences that has shaped us to be who we are today. So never give up, learn from the best. A lot of videos and different things out there, surfacing on YouTube and different social outlets that you can learn from. And I always tell coaches, and for myself, get what you can get from the video and use it. And whatever you can't use, then just let it go.
Well, thanks again. And if a reminder, don't forget to like and subscribe the FSU Coach pages so that you can get notified when we do have more interviews. And speaking of more interviews, we have coming up on Monday a very interesting speaker. Jeannie is from South Africa and is a wrestling coach. And I first met her actually at training several years ago in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Center. So hope you join us for that. We'll talk about wrestling in South Africa. We'll talk about administration of wrestling, and then we'll talk about her coaching experiences as well. But on behalf of myself, Tim Baghurst, and of course, Coach Charlie Ward, thank you so much for watching.